I'm Dr. Eleanor Drywood. I am the Director of the European Children's Rights Unit at the University of Liverpool. In the European Children's Rights Unit, we have an excellent track record of work which sheds light on the way in which laws and policies can impact young people, often negatively, when they're not thought through from a children's rights perspective. Historically, a children's perspective hasn't really been considered in the planning and the formulation and the implementation of laws and policies. It's actually only relatively recently that there's been widespread acceptance of the idea that incorporating a children's rights perspective into that process of planning laws and policies can actually produce better outcomes that more ably meet societal needs and respond to the specific situation of individuals impacted by law and policy. My own work looks at children's rights in the football industry. This is an industry which, because of rapid commercialisation and professionalisation, hasn't really developed with an eye on what a children's rights perspective would look like for the organisation, the regulation and the running of the game of football. So one example would be the way in which transfer regulations in football place a real emphasis on financial reward for clubs who train players as children, and on eligibility rules which require players to have been at their club from a young age. And what those regulations do is really promote competition between clubs for young players, incentivise clubs to sign players at as young an age as possible. And this can have really negative consequences for a child's contact with their family, their educational experiences, and even their mental and physical health and well-being. And so that's a really clear example of regulations, the purpose of which was to promote a fair transfer market, but have had accidental negative consequences on the rights of the children they impact on. We have seen the very worst consequences of an approach to training which puts complete trust in the coach and disempowers young people, with recent revelations around the extent of physical, sexual and emotional abuse in sport. The severity of these revelations has really demanded a rethink around culture within many sporting organisations, and that has to begin with an approach which puts young people at the heart of those decisions, listens to young people and brings about real change in a sporting environment. For areas such as sport, which is generally dominated by ideals around competition and a winning at all costs mentality, the idea of incorporating a children's rights perspective into decision making and regulation can seem like quite a daunting task. But sport has to be a positive experience for young people. And there's actually a lot of expertise out there around children's rights-based approaches to decision-making and to regulation and legal provision in other contexts, which could usefully be applied to the sporting arena. So it's not a case of reinventing the wheel, it's just a case of sport and sports organisations engaging better with the children's rights expertise that is out there. We are really keen in the unit to work with specialists across diverse legal fields to provide expertise on the way in which the law can impact children specifically, and to showcase how a children's rights-based approach can lead to better outcomes.